Jake Turner never thought his boring job would change his life forever. He was just a communications officer on the Earth Defense Fleet ship called the Meridian. Every day was the same. Sit at his desk, watch the screens, and listen to radio. Signals from space. Nothing exciting ever happened during these long space patrols, but today felt different somehow. Jake had been working the night shift for 3 weeks straight, and he was getting tired of the routine. The coffee machine was broken again, and his partner had called in sick. So there he was, alone in the communications room, surrounded by blinking lights and the quiet hum of machines. Around midnight, something strange appeared on his screen. It was a signal unlike anything he had ever seen before. The pattern was too complex to be natural, but it didn't match any known alien or human technology either. Jake leaned forward, adjusting his headset and fine-tuning the receivers. "The heck is that?" he muttered to himself, watching the unusual waves dance across his monitor. He tried to trace where the signal was coming from. It seemed to be coming from somewhere in the nearby asteroid field. Jake had scanned that area hundreds of times before. There was never anything there except floating rocks and space dust. Jake thought about calling his supervisor, but Captain Rodriguez was known for getting angry when woken up for false alarms. Instead, he decided to investigate further. He switched to the ship's long-range scanners and pointed them toward the signal source. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. There, hidden behind a massive asteroid, was a ship. But this wasn't just any ship. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the Meridian. Its design was unlike anything in the Earth Defense Fleet handbook. The hull had smooth, flowing curves that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "This is impossible," Jake whispered. "At." Rubbing his eyes to make sure he wasn't seeing things, he immediately contacted the bridge. Within minutes, the captain was wide awake and ordering a full investigation. The Meridian changed course toward the mysterious vessel, and Jake found himself part of the boarding party, something that had never happened in his 5 years of service. As they approached the alien ship, Jake noticed it wasn't moving at all. No lights, no energy signatures, nothing. It looked completely dead, just drifting through space like a ghost ship. The boarding party consisted of 6 people, including Jake. They wore their best spacesuits and carried standard exploration gear as they entered through what appeared to be an airlock. Jake's heart was beating so fast he could hear it in his helmet. The inside of the ship was incredible. The corridors were wide and tall, with walls that seemed to glow softly. Everything was clean and perfectly maintained, as if the crew had just stepped out for a moment. But there was no one there. Room after room was empty. "Where is everyone?" asked Lieutenant Chen, the team leader. They searched for hours, finding living quarters, what looked like a dining hall, and rooms filled with technology they couldn't understand. Jake used his equipment to scan for any signs of life, but the readings were confusing. Most of the ship showed no life signs at all, but there was something strange coming from the central area. Finally, they found what appeared to be the bridge. It was a huge circular room with a chair in the center that looked like it was made for someone very important. Screens covered the walls, all dark and silent. But in a small room connected to the bridge, they found something that made everyone stop and stare. There was a single pod, about the size of a bed, glowing with soft blue light. Through the clear top, they could see someone inside an alien, but one that looked surprisingly human-like. The being had pale skin, pointed ears, was wearing what appeared to be a military uniform covered in symbols they didn't recognize. "Is it alive?" someone asked. Jake stepped closer to the pod, and suddenly the alien's eyes opened. They were bright green and seemed to look right through him. The pod began to open with a soft hissing sound. The alien sat up slowly, looking around at the boarding party with a mixture of confusion and sadness. When it spoke, the words came out in a language none of them understood, but somehow Jake found himself understanding every word. "You have found me at last," the alien said, though its lips seemed to be saying something different. "I am Captain Zarathal of the Stellar Confederation. I have been waiting for someone like you." Jake stepped forward, not knowing why he felt compelled to do so. Like me. What do you mean? The alien looked at him with tired eyes. You can hear my words, can't you? Even though I speak in my own language, you understand me. That is the sign I have been waiting for. Captain Zarathal was clearly very sick. Her breathing was shallow, and she seemed to be using all her strength just to sit up. She reached out a trembling hand toward Jake. I have been the guardian of this ship for many years, she continued. But my time is ending. Confederation is gone, destroyed by war and politics. This ship and its crew are all that remain of our great civilization. Jake felt confused and overwhelmed. I don't understand. What does this have to do with me? The alien smiled sadly. Everything, young one. This ship needs a new commander, someone who can unite different species and lead them toward a better future. Our ancient ceremonies can detect such people, and you have the heart of a true leader. Before Jake could protest, Captain Zarathal placed her hand on his forehead. Suddenly, Jake felt a strange warmth spreading through his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, star systems he had never seen, technologies beyond human understanding, and the faces of alien warriors who had served on this ship. I pass the command of the Astral Sovereign to you, Zarathal whispered. May you prove worthy of the trust I place in you. With those words, she closed her eyes and became very still. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation in his mind, as if something had been permanently changed inside his head. The other members of the boarding party stood in shocked silence. Lieutenant Chen was the first to speak. Turner, what just happened? Looked around the bridge, and suddenly all the dark screens began to glow with soft light. A voice spoke from somewhere in the walls, calm, female, and speaking perfect English. Welcome, Commander Turner. I am the ship's artificial intelligence. How may I serve you? Jake's legs felt weak. This has to be some kind of mistake. Just a communications officer. The neural bonding process does not make mistakes, Commander. You have been chosen to lead this vessel and its crew. Would you like me to explain your new responsibilities? The other members of the boarding party looked at Jake with a mixture of confusion and fear. Lieutenant Chen tried to contact the Meridian, but his radio only produced static. Ship's communication systems operate on different frequencies, the AI explained. I can establish contact with your vessel if you wish, Commander. Jake felt like he was dreaming. 1 minute he was doing his boring job, and now he was apparently the commander of the most advanced ship he had ever seen. He looked around the bridge, noticing that many of the controls seemed to respond to his presence. How many crew members are on this ship? He asked the AI. Currently, all crew members are in deep stasis, awaiting your decision to revive them. There are 47 individuals from various species, all trained warriors and specialists in their fields. Jake's mind raced. 47 alien crew members, all depending on him to lead them. The responsibility felt overwhelming. He thought about his simple life on the Meridian, his small apartment back on Earth, and his family, who expected him to return safely from this mission. Can I go back to my old life? He asked quietly. The AI paused before answering. That choice is yours, Commander? However, I must inform you that this ship contains technology that could be dangerous in the wrong hands. The Confederation built the Astral Sovereign as a prototype for vessels that could help rebuild civilization after their fall. Without proper leadership, it could become a weapon of destruction. Jake looked at his fellow crew members who were still trying to process what had happened. He thought about Captain Zarothal's final words and the strange images that had flashed through his mind during the bonding ceremony. Standing there on the bridge of an alien warship, Jake Turner realized that his boring old life was over. He had to decide whether to run away from this incredible responsibility or embrace a destiny he never asked for. The universe suddenly seemed much bigger and more dangerous than he had ever imagined. Jake spent 3 sleepless days walking around the Astral Sovereign, trying to understand what had happened to him. The ship's AI, who called herself Arya, followed him everywhere through the speakers, patiently answering his endless questions. But Jake still felt completely lost. Arya, are you absolutely sure there wasn't some kind of mistake? Jake asked for the 100th time as he stood in what appeared to be the ship's main corridor. The neural bonding process has never failed. In over 3,000 years of Confederation history, Commander Arya replied in her calm voice. Captain Zarathal saw something in you that even you do not yet recognize. Jake sighed and rubbed his tired eyes. The other members of his boarding party had returned to the Meridian 2 days ago, taking Captain Zarathal's body with them. Captain Rodriguez had given Jake permission to stay and explore the alien ship, but Jake knew this couldn't last forever. Soon, Earth Command would want answers, and Jake didn't have any good ones. Tell me about the crew again, Jake said, stopping in front of a large door marked with alien symbols. Beyond this door lies the stasis chamber. 47 individuals from different worlds, all volunteers who serve the Confederation with honor. They have been sleeping for over 100 years, waiting for a new commander to lead them. Jake's hands were shaking as he reached for the door controls. What if they don't like me? What if they think I'm too young or too inexperienced? Then you will prove them wrong, Arya said simply. But first, you must wake them up. The stasis chamber was enormous, filled with rows of glowing pods similar to the one where they had found Captain Zarathal. Each pod contained a sleeping figure, and Jake was amazed to see how different they all looked. Some appeared almost human, while others were clearly from worlds he couldn't even imagine. I recommend starting with the senior officers, Arya suggested. They can help you understand the others and assist with the awakening process. Jake nodded nervously. Okay, let's do this. The first pod Arya chose contained a woman with blue skin and silver hair. As the pod opened, Jake held his breath. Woman's eyes opened slowly, revealing bright yellow irises that seemed to glow in the dim light. She sat up gracefully, looking around the chamber with the alertness of a trained warrior. Commander, she said in accented English, somehow knowing exactly who Jake was. I am Kira, tactical officer of the Astral Sovereign. You are... younger than I expected. Jake tried to stand up straighter. Nice to meet you, Kira. I'm Jake Turner. Kira stepped out of her pod, and Jake noticed she moved with the fluid grace of a dancer or fighter. She was tall, probably 6 feet, with muscular arms that suggested she was very strong. Her blue skin had intricate silver patterns that seemed to shift and change as she moved. You are human, she observed, tilting her head. This is expected. Before Jake could respond, Arya began opening more pods. The next to wake up was a tall, pale woman with white hair and the most beautiful face Jake had ever seen. Her ears were pointed like an elf from fantasy movies, and her eyes were a deep purple color. I am Lyra, she said, her voice sounding like music. Chief Engineer. The ship's systems feel... different. You have bonded with the Astral Sovereign. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Jake asked, feeling more nervous with each new person who woke up. The third pod revealed a woman with fiery red hair and green eyes. She was shorter than the others, but had the build of someone who spent a lot of time exercising. As soon as she was fully awake, she jumped out of her pod and looked around like she was ready for a fight. Where's the enemy? She demanded. Why are we waking up? Did something happen to Captain Zarathal? Zara, calm down, Kira said gently. We have a new commander. The red-haired woman, Zara, looked at Jake with obvious suspicion. Him? He's just a kid, and he's human. Since when do humans command Confederation vessels? Since the Confederation fell in, Captain Zarathal chose him as her successor, said a new voice. Jake turned to see another woman emerging from her pod. This one had pale skin so white it was almost translucent, and her hair was completely black. Her eyes were silver, and when she looked at Jake, he felt like she was seeing right through him. Nova, she said softly. Navigator, I can sense the changes in the ship's energy patterns. The bonding was successful. The last pod Arya opened contained a woman with green-tinted skin and kind brown eyes. She was smaller than the others and had a gentle smile that made Jake feel slightly less nervous. Dr. Thessa, she introduced herself. Medical officer. You look tired, Commander. When did you last sleep? I'm not sure, Jake admitted. Everything has been so crazy. Dr. Thessa nodded understandingly. The bonding process can be exhausting. Your brain is still adjusting to the neural link with the ship. Jake looked around at the 5 women surrounding him. Each one was incredibly different, not just in appearance, but in the way they carried themselves. Kira stood like a soldier, ready for action. Lyra moved like every gesture was carefully planned. Zara looked like she might start a fight at any moment. Nova seemed to be studying everything around her with intense focus, and Dr. Thesa appeared genuinely concerned about his well-being. So Jake said, trying to sound more confident than he felt, "What happens now?" "Now," Zara said, crossing her arms, "you prove you're worthy of commanding this ship," Zara, Kira warned, but the red-haired woman ignored her. "No, she's right," Jake said, surprising everyone. "I know I'm not what you expected. I'm just a communications officer from Earth. I've never commanded anything more important than a radio station. But Captain Zerothal chose me for a reason, and I'm going to figure out what that reason is." Lyra smiled slightly. "An interesting approach. Most new commanders try to assert their authority immediately." "I can't assert authority I haven't earned," Jake replied. "But I can learn, and I can listen. So tell me about yourselves. Tell me about this ship. Help me understand what I'm supposed to do." The 5 women exchanged glances, and Jake could see they were having some kind of silent conversation. Finally, Kira spoke. "Very well, Commander. We will teach you. But understand that this ship and its crew have standards. If you cannot meet them, we will find someone who can." Jake nodded. "That's fair. Just ... Be patient with me, okay?" "Mistakes. We all make mistakes," Dr. Thesis said kindly. "The important thing is learning from them." Over the next several hours, Jake learned more about space combat, alien cultures, and advanced technology than he had in his entire life. Kira showed him the weapon systems, explaining how the ship's advanced targeting computers could track multiple enemies at once. Lyra took him to the engineering section, where machines he couldn't even name hummed with power beyond anything Earth had ever created. Zara tested his physical fitness, making him run through obstacle courses and basic combat training. Was embarrassed by how out of shape he was compared to these warrior women. But Zara seemed pleased that he didn't give up even when he was exhausted. Nova taught him about the ship's navigation systems, explaining how they could travel between star systems in ways that human science said was impossible. And Dr. Thessa showed him the medical bay, where technology existed that could heal injuries that would be fatal on Earth. "The ship is incredible," Jake said, as they all gathered in what appeared to be a dining hall. "But I still don't understand why Captain Zerothal chose me," perhaps Lyra said thoughtfully. "It is not about what you know, but about who you are." "What do you mean? You listen?" Kira observed. "Most commanders give orders. You ask questions." "You're not afraid to admit you don't know something," Nova added. "You haven't tried to change everything just to prove you're in charge," Zara said grudgingly. Dr. Thesis smiled. "Do you treat us like people, not just tools to be used?" Jake felt a warm feeling in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, he could actually do this job. But as he looked around at these incredible women who had trusted him with their lives, he realized that being a commander wasn't about being the smartest or the strongest person in the room. It was about bringing out the best in everyone around. "You." "So," he said, standing up, "what's our first mission?" 2 weeks had passed since Jake first awakened his crew, and life aboard the Astral Sovereign was slowly becoming routine. Jake had moved his belongings from the Meridian to the alien ship, much to Captain Rodriguez's confusion. But Jake knew he couldn't lead this crew while living somewhere else. Every morning, Jake would wake up in his new quarters and find Dr. Thesa waiting outside his door with a cup of some strange, alien drink that tasted like coffee, but gave him twice as much energy. She had explained that his human body needed time to adjust to the ship's different atmosphere and artificial gravity. "Good morning, Commander Thesa," said cheerfully as Jake stepped into the corridor. "How did you sleep?" "Better than yesterday," Jake replied, taking the warm cup gratefully. "Thanks for this, whatever it is. It's called kava root tea. It's very popular on my home planet. It helps with stress and mental clarity." Jake had learned that each of his crew members came from worlds that were now gone, destroyed by the wars that had torn apart the Confederation. Dr. Thess's planet had been consumed by a plague that turned the lush forests into barren wastelands. But instead of being bitter about her loss, she focused on helping others heal. In the dining hall, Jake found the rest of his senior officers already eating breakfast. Kira was practicing some kind of martial arts form while eating, her movements flowing like water. Lyra was reading what looked like technical manuals, while somehow managing to eat at the same time. Zara was arm wrestling with one of the other crew members and winning easily. Nava sat quietly in the corner, staring out at the stars through a large window. "Morning, everyone," Jake called out as he joined them. Commander Kira acknowledged with a slight bow. "I've been thinking about your combat training. Your reflexes are improving, but you need to work on your strategy thinking." Jake groaned. Kira had been putting him through increasingly difficult combat scenarios, and he felt like he was failing most of them. "Can't we take a break today? My whole body is sore. Pain is just weakness leaving the body," Zara said with a grin, finishing her arm wrestling match. "Besides, you're getting better. Yesterday you lasted almost 3 minutes against the training robot." 3 minutes doesn't sound very impressive," Jake muttered. "For a human with no prior combat experience, it's remarkable," Lyra said, looking up from her reading. "Most beings would have been defeated in seconds." Nova turned away from the window. "Commander, there's something you should see." A distress signal appeared on our sensors about an hour ago. Jake's heart rate increased. This would be their first real test as a crew. "Show me." They all moved to the bridge, where the main screen displayed a star map with a blinking red dot. Arya's voice filled the room as she explained the situation. "Signal is coming from a convoy of refugee ships about 6 hours away at maximum speed. They're being attacked by raiders who are trying to steal their supplies." Jake studied the display. "Sensors indicate 12 attack vessels, heavily armed. The refugee convoy has no military escorts." Zara cracked her knuckles. "Finally, some action. When do we leave?" "Wait," Jake said, holding up his hand. "We need to think about this." 12 ships against one, even if our ship is more advanced." "You're scared," Zara said, but there was no judgment in her voice, just observation. Jake nodded honestly. "Yes, I am. These people are counting on me to make the right decision. If I mess this up, they could die." Kira stepped forward. "Command of fear is not something to be ashamed of. It shows you understand the responsibility of command. But sometimes action is necessary despite fear. What do you think we should do?" Jake asked, looking around at his crew. "We help them," Dr. Thesa said simply. "It's the right thing to do." "From a tactical standpoint," Lyra added, "our ship has capabilities the raiders have never seen. We could disable their vessels without destroying them." Nova nodded slowly. "The refugees are families with children, have already lost their homes. We cannot let them lose their lives as well." Jake looked at each of his crew members. They were all waiting for his decision, but he could see in their eyes that they had already made their choice. They wanted to help, and they believed he would make the right call. "Arya, set course for the refugee convoy. Maximum speed. Course laid in." Commander Arya responded. "Estimated arrival in 5 hours, 42 minutes. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Jake felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. This would be his first real command decision in a crisis situation. He spent the next few hours learning everything he could about the ship's weapons and defensive systems. Kira showed him how the targeting computers worked, explaining that their advanced sensors could track multiple enemies simultaneously. "The key is not to panic," she said. "Trust your instincts and trust your crew." Lyra taught him about the ship's energy shields, which could absorb incredible amounts of damage before failing. "Think of it like a bubble around the ship," she explained. "As long as the bubble holds, we're safe." Zara demonstrated the various weapon systems, from precision lasers that could disable enemy engines to more powerful weapons that could destroy entire ships. "Sometimes you have to be ready to use force," she said seriously. "But always remember that every shot you fire affects real people." Dr. Thesa prepared the medical bay for possible casualties, while Nova calculated the best approach route to minimize danger to the refugee ships. When they finally arrived at the battle site, Jake's heart was pounding. The refugee convoy consisted of 8 large transport ships, clearly designed for carrying families and supplies rather than fighting. They were being circled by sleek attack vessels that looked like metal sharks. 12 raider ships confirmed, Kira reported. They're firing on the transports, but seem to be trying to disable rather than destroy them. They want to capture the ships and sell the refugees as slaves, Zara said grimly. It's a common tactic in this part of space. Jake felt anger rising. In his chest, not on my watch. Arya, open a channel to the raider ships. Channel open, Commander. This is Commander Jake Turner of the Astral Sovereign. You are attacking innocent civilians. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. A harsh voice responded through the speakers. Never heard of you, human. This is our prize. Leave now, or we'll add your ship to our collection. Jake looked. Around at his crew, they were all watching him, waiting for his orders. He thought about the families on those transport ships, probably terrified, and wondering if anyone would help them. Target the raiders' engines, Jake ordered. Disable their ships, but don't destroy them unless they leave us no choice. Systems online, Kira reported. Shields at maximum power, Lyra added. Weapons ready, Zara confirmed. The battle began as the raider ships turned their attention to the Astral Sovereign. Jake watched the tactical display as energy beams and missiles flew through space. But to his amazement, their advanced shields held easily against the attacks. Their weapons can't penetrate our defenses, Lyra reported with satisfaction. Return. Fire, Jake ordered. Precision shots only. The Astral Sovereign's weapons were incredibly accurate. One by one, the raider ships found their engines disabled, leaving them floating helplessly in space. The few ships that tried to escape were easily caught by Nova's expert piloting. Within 20 minutes, the battle was over. All 12 raider ships were disabled, and the refugee convoy was safe. As transport leader Corvain came a grateful voice over the communications. Thank you for saving our families. How can we ever repay you? Jake smiled, feeling proud of his crew for the first time. Just take care of each other. That's payment enough. As they watched the refugee ships continue on their journey, Jake realized something important had happened. His crew wasn't just following his orders anymore. They were working together as a real team. For the first time since becoming Commander, Jake felt like he might actually be able to do this job. But as Arya detected new ships approaching their position, Jake knew their problems were just beginning. The celebration after saving the refugee convoy didn't last long. 3 days later, Jake was woken up at 4 a.m. by Arya's urgent voice echoing through his quarters. Commander, you need to get to the bridge immediately. We have a problem. Jake jumped out of bed and quickly put on his uniform. As he ran through the corridors, he could feel the ship's engines working harder than usual. Something was definitely wrong. On the bridge, he found his entire crew already assembled, their faces showing concern. Nova was at the navigation console. Her silver eyes focused intently on the star charts. What's the situation? Jake asked, trying to sound calm despite his racing heart. Kira turned from her tactical station. We're being hunted, Commander. 6 ships have been following us for the past 2 days, staying just at the edge of our sensor range. Who are they? Jake asked, moving to the captain's chair. The Obsidian Fleet, Lyra answered, her musical voice filled with worry. They're what's left of the Confederation's military, but they've gone rogue. They follow a leader called Admiral Vexter. Jake had heard whispers about the Obsidian Fleet from some of the other crew members. They were supposed to be ruthless and dangerous, using modified soldiers who were part machine, part organic. What do they want? Jake asked. Our ship, Zara said bluntly. The Astral Sovereign has technology they've never seen before. With it, they could conquer entire star systems. Dr. Thesa looked up from her medical scanner. Commander, your stress levels are elevated. Perhaps some breathing exercises would help. Jake almost laughed despite the situation. Even in the middle of a crisis, Thesa was worried about his health. I'm fine, Doc. Just thinking. The problem is, we can't outrun them forever, Nova said softly. They know these space lanes better than we do, and they have more ships. Jake studied the tactical display showing their pursuers. You're 6 ships against 1. And these weren't simple raiders like before. No, these were military vessels with trained crews and advanced weapons. How long before they catch up to us? Jake asked. At current speed, maybe 8 hours, Nova replied. But there's something else. There's a nebula about 4 hours away. We could hide in there, but it would be risky. Risky? Jake asked. Lyra explained. Nebulas interfered with sensors and communication. We'd be flying blind, and the energy fields could damage our systems. Jake thought about their options. They could keep running, but eventually they'd be caught. They could turn and fight, but 6 against 1 seemed impossible. Or they could take the risk and hide in the nebula. Set course for the nebula, Jake decided. At least there we might have a chance. As the ship changed direction, Jake could see his crew was nervous, but determined. Over the past month, they had become more than just his officers. They were becoming his friends. And he could see they trusted him to make the right decisions. The next few hours passed tensely. Jake spent time with each crew member, learning more about their backgrounds and what the Obsidian fleet had done to their people. Kira told him about her home planet. Her people had been peaceful until the Obsidian fleet arrived. Took our young warriors and turned them into cyborg soldiers, she said sadly. My own brother was captured. I don't even know if he's still alive. Lyra shared her story while working on the ship's engines. My people were scientists and engineers. We created beautiful cities that floated in the clouds. The Obsidian fleet wanted our technology, so they destroyed everything when we refused to give it to them. Zara's story was the most painful. My world was a training ground for warriors. We were proud of our strength and honor. But Admiral Vexstar made us fight each other for his entertainment. Those who survived were forced to join his fleet. Nova's people had been wiped out completely. We were navigators, able to sense the flow of space and time. The Obsidian fleet thought we were too dangerous to live. I'm one of the last of my kind. Dr. Thess's planet had been used as a testing ground for new weapons. They used my people as experiments, she said quietly. Became a doctor to help heal the damage they caused. Listening to these stories, Jake felt a deep anger building inside him. These women had lost everything, but they still chose to help others instead of seeking revenge. It made him more determined to protect them. When they finally reached the nebula, it was both beautiful and terrifying. Swirling clouds of gas and energy stretched as far as they could see, glowing with colors that didn't exist in normal space. Taking us in, Nova announced. Her hands steady on the controls despite the danger. Inside the nebula, everything became difficult. The ship's sensors could barely see a few hundred meters ahead. Communication with the outside was impossible. But at least they were hidden from their pursuers. How long can we stay here? Jake asked Lyra. Maybe a day before the energy fields start causing permanent damage to our systems, she replied. They had found temporary safety, but Jake knew they needed a plan. While exploring the nebula, Nova made an incredible discovery. Commander, there's something in here. A structure of some kind. On the main screen, they could see the outline of what looked like a space station, ancient and abandoned, but still intact. It's a Confederate research facility, Arya identified. Records show it was abandoned over 200 years ago. Jake made the decision to dock with the station. Maybe they could find something useful, or at least a better place to hide. While they figured out their next move. The station was dark and empty, but its systems were still functional. In the main computer core, they found records that explained everything about their ship and its mission. The Astral Sovereign wasn't just a warship, Jake read from the ancient files. It was designed to be a symbol of hope, a ship that could unite different species and help rebuild civilization after the wars ended. That's why Captain Zerothel chose you, Kira said with sudden understanding. You have the ability to bring people together, to make them work as a team. But I'm just one person, Jake protested. How can I unite an entire galaxy? One person. At a time, Dr. Thesa said with a gentle smile, just like you did with us. Their conversation was interrupted by alarms blaring throughout the station. The Obsidian fleet had found them. 6 ships surrounding the station, Zara reported. They're demanding we surrender. Jake looked around at his crew. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they weren't giving up. These incredible women believed in him, and he couldn't let them down. Battle stations, Jake ordered. Let's show them what the Astral Sovereign can do. The fight that followed was unlike anything Jake had experienced. The Obsidian fleet ships were powerful, but they fought like individuals. Jake's crew worked together perfectly, each person supporting the others. Kira's tactical skills allowed them to hit enemy weak points. Lyra kept their systems running at peak efficiency. Zara's weapons expertise made every shot count. Nova's navigation skills helped them avoid the worst attacks. Dr. Thiza kept everyone healthy and focused. The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a clear advantage. But gradually, Jake began to understand something important. He wasn't just commanding his crew, he was bringing out the best in each of them. When the fighting finally ended, 3 of the enemy ships were disabled, and the others had retreated. The Astral Sovereign was damaged, but still functional. Did it? Zara said with amazement. We actually won? But Jake knew this was just the beginning. The Obsidian fleet would be back, and next time, they would bring more ships. He had proven he could lead in battle, but the real test was still ahead. As they limped away from the nebula, Jake realized that being a commander wasn't just about winning fights. It was about protecting the people who trusted you, even when the odds seemed impossible. 1 month after the battle in the nebula, Jake stood in his quarters looking at a message from Earth Command. They wanted him to return home with the Astral Sovereign and hand over all its technology to human scientists. The message had been waiting for him when they finally reached a safe communication relay. Tough decision? Dr. Thiza asked from the doorway. She had a habit of checking on him when he seemed stressed. The toughest, Jake admitted. Earth wants me to come back. My family thinks I'm dead. My old life is calling me. Thiza entered the room and sat down across from him. But that's not what you want, is it? Jake looked out at the stars through his window. A few months ago, I would have said yes without thinking. But now, these people, this crew, they've become my family, too. And there's so much good we could do out here. The choice is yours, Commander. But remember, sometimes the path we never planned to take becomes the one we were meant to walk. Jake smiled at her wisdom. Over the past weeks, he had grown closer. To all his crew members, they had shared meals, stories, and dangers together. They had become more than just a military unit. They were a real family. Later that day, Jake called a meeting in the ship's conference room. All 47 crew members were present, representing dozens of different species and worlds. Looking around the room, Jake saw faces that had become dear to him. I've received orders from Earth Command, Jake began. They want me to return with this ship and turn over all its technology to human authorities. A murmur went through the room. Some crew members looked worried, others angry. Zara was the first to speak up. And what did you tell them? I haven't responded yet, Jake said, because this decision affects all of us. This is your ship too, and you deserve to have a say in what happens next. Kira leaned forward. Commander, what do you want to do? Jake took a deep breath. I want to stay. I want to use this ship the way it was meant to be used, to help people, to protect those who can't protect themselves. But I can't make that choice for everyone. You're not making it for us, Nova said softly. You're making it with us, Ira nodded. The Confederation is gone, but its ideals don't have to be. We could be something new, something better, and older. Crew member named Cortez, who had been quiet throughout most of their journey, stood up. Commander, most of us have nowhere else to go. Our homes are gone, our families are dead. You've given us purpose again. But what about Earth? Jake asked. What about my responsibilities there? Your responsibility is to do what's right, Dr. Thiza said gently. And you know what that is? Jake looked around the room one more time. These people had trusted him with their lives, and he had led them through impossible situations. Now they were asking him to lead them into an uncertain future. Then it's settled, Jake said firmly. We're staying, but we're not going to be a military unit anymore. We're going to be peacekeepers, helping anyone who needs it, regardless of their species or politics. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had made his choice, and it felt right. Over the next Few days they worked together to establish their new mission. They would respond to distress calls, protect civilian ships, and try to bring stability to a galaxy torn apart by war. They renamed their group the Stellar Guardians. And Jake designed a new insignia that combined symbols from all the different worlds represented in their crew. Their first official mission came sooner than expected. A small mining colony was being terrorized by pirates who were demanding tribute payments. The colonists had no military protection and nowhere to run. "Sounds like our kind of job," Zara said with a grin when they received the distress call. The mission was a success. Crew was able to drive off the pirates without anyone getting seriously hurt. But more importantly, they helped the colonists set up a defense system and trained local volunteers to protect themselves. "This feels right," Jake said to Kira as they watched the grateful colonists wave goodbye. "This is what we're supposed to be doing." "You've changed, Commander," Kira observed. "When I first met you, you were uncertain and afraid. Now you're confident and strong." "I had good teachers," Jake replied. "You all showed me what real leadership looks like." As months passed, the Stellar Guardians became known throughout the galaxy as protectors of the innocent. They helped refugees find new homes, stopped conflicts between different species, and even convinced some former enemies to work together for peace. Jake's favorite mission was helping to establish a new colony where different alien species could live together in harmony. Watching families from different worlds playing together in the same parks reminded him why he had chosen this path.
You know, Dr. Thesis said.
One evening as they watched the sunset on the new colony world, I think Captain Zarathel knew exactly what she was doing when she chose you. "What do you mean?" "She didn't choose you because you were the best warrior or the smartest strategist. She chose you because you have something more important, the ability to bring out the best in others." Jake thought about his journey from a lonely communications officer to the leader of a diverse crew of heroes. "I never thought my life would turn out like this." "None of us did," Lyra said, joining their conversation. "But sometimes the best things in life are the ones we never planned for." Nova appeared beside them, her silver eyes reflecting the alien sunset. "The universe has a way of putting people where they need to be, even when they don't know they need to be there," Zara added, sitting down on the grass next to them as Jake looked around at his crew, his friends, his family. He realized that he had found something more valuable than any treasure or technology. He had found his purpose. A few weeks later, the Astral Sovereign received another distress call. This time it was from a planet where a dictator was oppressing his people. Local resistance needed help, but they had no money to pay for it. "Set course for the Kepler system," Jake ordered, as he settled into his captain's chair. "Maximum speed." "Course laid in, Commander," Nova reported from the navigation station. "Weapon systems ready," Zara confirmed. "Engines at full power," Lyra announced. "Medical bay prepared for casualties," Dr. Thesa added. "All crew members at battle stations," Kira finished. As the Astral Sovereign jumped into hyperspace, Jake smiled. A year ago, he had been a nobody sitting at a communications console, dreaming of adventure, but never expecting to find it. He was traveling through the galaxy with the most amazing crew anyone could ask for, making a real difference in the universe. The stars streaked past the view screen as they raced toward their next mission. Jake didn't know what challenges awaited them, but he knew they would face them together. And that was all that mattered. Another day, another chance to make the galaxy a better place, Jake said to himself. "Did you say something, Commander?" Kira asked. Jake looked around at his crew, his family, his home among the stars, just thinking about how lucky I am. "We all are," Dr. Thesa said, with a warm smile. And as the Astral Sovereign flew toward its next adventure, Jake knew that his greatest journey was just beginning.